Welcome to Soul Nectar, a podcast for women who lead by frequency, embodiment, and soul essence. It's a portal into a new paradigm of feminine leadership, a return to your natural state of being as a woman, rooted in feminine essence, embodied wisdom, and inner wholeness. Here, your soul is nourished by transmissions that drip with sweetness, the honey of your own inner knowing. Each episode is nectar, soft, sensual, soul-led.
Your feminine wisdom that reminds us of our infinity, our divinity.
Welcome back to the Soul Nectar Podcast. Today I am going to share one of my favorite topics, something that has opened my own world, something I'm deeply, deeply passionate about, something I'm so grateful I discovered in my life. And that's the topic of energetic orgasm. So if you've been following me for a while and you've known my podcast, I've shared a lot about energetic orgasms before, but never accumulated in one episode of my experience with them, how this world opened up for me, and also why I'm so passionate about it, because it's so much more than just an orgasm. It almost feels like there was a world of pleasure available for me before this moment that I'm going to share with you. And in that moment, a whole new universe of pleasure and also how life and this universe works opened up to me through that experience. So I had my first energetic orgasm. I didn't even knew it was a thing. I have heard about it, but I didn't know this was possible for me. I thought it's just for these tantric masters or available for specific people. I never believed I could have one myself. It felt a little bit woo-woo, to be honest, back then. So today I want to share my first experience of how this world opened up to me, and also some of my wild experiences with energetic orgasms and how they've just amplified my aliveness, my pleasure capacity, and my radiance. So we have to go back. I think it was 8 or 9 years ago, the very first retreat I guided ever, that also opened a new timeline. So I was still a school teacher in Munich. If you're interested in learning more about that, the last episode is called Why I Stopped Holding Space for 2.5 years. So there you can learn everything about my journey, my offerings, how this retreat came together, because it was a very spontaneous idea that ended up in a whole timeline and career path. So I was at this retreat guiding it with my best friend back then. And there was a birthday party during that retreat where I had an experience with a man that opened my body for my first energetic experience. So with this man, there was no physical contact besides his hand on my solar plexus. So we were both clothed. There were two other people in the room. And it was such a magical experience. So I had met this man before and I didn't feel any physical attraction to him. We had a good, conversation, friendship vibe going on, but there was no attraction. And in that night, these two men came to visit us during the retreat. This was before my containers became very sacred and intimate. This was more like a surf and yoga and good food kind of vibe. So one of my best friends, it was her birthday, and we decided to do a penthouse party where me and my best friend were staying in. And the guy I ended up having the energetic orgasm with, he got up at night and took his blanket from the couch and moved towards the balcony door and laid down on the floor. And I was like, okay, what's going on? I was very confused. So I followed him and offered him that he can come sleep in our bed. And I offered my hand and he pulled me down and our foreheads met. And I don't know what happened in that moment, but there was this electric pull that rushed through my body. Like it felt like lightning had struck my body. And there was this energy between us suddenly that I have never experienced in that intensity ever before. And again, I wasn't even attracted to him physically. He wasn't my type. We've had conversations before, there was nothing between us. And suddenly this light bulb of electricity was there. So we ended up going to the bed. And so it was the three of us in the bed. And we didn't touch for the whole time. We were just eye gazing and letting the energy move in our bodies. And he only placed his hand on my solar plexus. I was fully closed, he was fully closed. And over hours, the energy began to move in our bodies. It almost felt like it was circling between me and him, even though there were other people in the room, even though we were fully closed. It was a fully energetic experience. And the energy was moving through my body. I could feel it moving up and down and already feeling so blissful in my body. And over the hours, the sun was rising, we hadn't slept. I noticed this intensity of energy that started to move. So it would move up my body. And after a long time of him being present with me, I experienced my first energetic orgasm. And it's something that is really hard to explain with words, but it's like this flush of energy that moves through the entire body. So if you have a clitoral orgasm, it's very much an intense sensation and rush of energy that goes outward and then it's gone. But with the energetic orgasm, it's in the whole body, it moves through the entire system and it gives you energy. You don't feel depleted after. Your whole body is experiencing huge amounts of pleasure and bliss. And it charges your light body, it charges your energy field, it charges your body and your nervous system. It feels like a very energetic, but also in the body experience. And I couldn't believe that this was happening. I was just surrendering to it. I allowed it. And my whole body was shaking from it and moving. And I made sounds and breath, and everything was just happening in my body that I didn't really know. I couldn't define what was happening. I was just releasing the resistance, and suddenly I had this energetic orgasm. And I was mind blown from this experience. I was just, I had experienced something that I didn't even think was possible for me. So the next morning, I guided my yoga class, telling my friends about what just happened. And I remember my world was forever changed. I was like, okay, if this is the world and the amount of pleasure I thought was everything I could experience, and suddenly I had this experience where my whole life was blown open of what's actually possible. It made me want to dive really deep into the world of sacred sexuality, of energetic orgasms, of what's behind there. You know, sometimes you have a spark in life of something that just blows your mind and you want to pour all of your energy into it. But this was when I was still a school teacher, so I kept this very intimate. I never thought I would share this with the world. I came home from that retreat forever changed, my mind blown open by this experience of having this amount of pleasure and energy in my body. And also, I felt so charged up. I felt lighter. I felt more alive. I felt like, oh my God, I just want to pour this energy into something. So I researched and I looked up all the YouTube videos that were out there back then. And I fell in love with Salma Isadora. Unfortunately, she took her life a few years ago, but she was my role model in this. I just loved her energy. I felt what I had felt in that orgasm in her presence, in her videos, when she was talking on stage, I could feel it in her being. She was embodying what I had back then, a one-time experience. So I dove deep into sacred sexuality. I discovered the yoni egg. I discovered the the sexual blueprints in your body. And if you don't know what it is, I highly recommend checking that out. You can Google it, and there's quizzes. There's energetic, there's kinky, there's sensual, there's all these different blueprints that sometimes we're not even aware of that we have, but they can help us increase our pleasure capacity. And who doesn't want to have an experience and feel more pleasure in this life? I mean, that's what makes this human experience so special to me, is that we get to experience so much pleasure through presence in our everyday life. This goes beyond sexuality. This goes beyond the bedroom. How much can you allow yourself to be present with a mango? How much can you receive the sweetness and juiciness of a fruit? Because the more present you are and the more you release the resistance to every sensation in the body, to every emotion, the deeper you go into your pain, simultaneously your pleasure capacity increases. It's like the same side, the same coin, but a different side. We need to be able to and to be willing to feel both sides, the pleasure and the pain, to fully enjoy this human experience with all the senses and all the sensations. So I have found the deeper I go into my pain, the more pleasure I'm able to hold in my body. It trains the nervous system like a muscle. So after studying it, I did research and I wanted to become, like to just learn everything about this. And back then I was still very much mind-based and I needed scientific proof that this is actually working and it's not just woo-woo on the internet. Even though I had experienced it, I kind of wanted a teacher who had also done research. And I found this Tantra teacher that has done scientific experiments with women where she was blindfolded and she had all these electro stuff on a hospital bed so people could witness the change in body temperature. They had this infrared camera where they could see the heat rising and where the energy is moving. So I binge watched this whole thing. He has documentaries about it, and he basically blindfolded her so she couldn't see and she couldn't fake it. And he was hovering his hands above her body and directing the energy. And she would have these crazy energetic orgasms on the hospital bed. And then they did changes where someone else would come in and hover his hands who wasn't skilled in this, and her body temperature would immediately drop and her movements would stop. And I was like, oh my God, I need to learn from this man. And I went to Switzerland to attend, and it was like a 4 day journey, 3 or 4 day journey with him. But that experience was so distorted and so horrible for me. It was so leaky in sexual energy, and he was leading in a way I wasn't resonant with. It didn't feel pure. It felt like this is the books, eat it or leave it. If you want to learn more, you have to come to my bigger trainings. And I left. I didn't even join the last day. I felt really disappointed by this experience, but I was still so hungry for it. And for a few years, I didn't really have someone I could experience this with. So I just kind of left it on the side. I didn't put too much energy in back then because my life has just changed so much in that time. It wasn't my focus anymore. And I just focused on finding a way, finding my way in the world with what I'm teaching, with my mission. And it would come back later on when I knew I was supposed to share about sexual energy, about feminine energy, about the world that I'm so connected to. And it was really scary for me to make this transition from being a school teacher and then being a yoga teacher and then sharing about healing and then also opening the world of sacred sexuality to the outside world where there were still colleagues watching and still my family had access to my Instagram. It felt really edgy for me to lean into that, but I knew it was in alignment with what I was meant to share. And I want to share a few of my highlight experiences that most of the time happened very randomly and unplanned. And I have learned over the times with everything we bring into this world, and especially in the world of pleasure, but also if you're birthing something into the world, like an offering, or you're launching something, or you're writing a book, or you're opening a yoga studio, or you're bringing something into the world that you care deeply about, that comes from your soul, you channeled it, you want to offer it with the planet. I have found from my own experience, and this goes also into orgasm and pleasure, if you force your orgasm, if you push it, if you really want to have an orgasm, it usually never feels good, right? We're like, trying to make it work, forcing the orgasm out. And we all know how the difference between that kind of orgasm and the orgasm that comes from allowing and softening. And that's been my own journey over the last few years. Instead of pushing and forcing something, it doesn't matter if it's an orgasm or something you birth into this world, an offering. If you train your body to birth from softness and from pleasure and from allowing, I almost see, if you follow me on social media, you know I've just launched my Oracle deck Soul Nectar. And it shows this rose, this soft rose with dewdrops on it. And it's really opening. It's the infinite layers of the feminine. And the pearl comes from the cosmos. So it's a yoni portal. And through the infinite layers of the feminine, the depth, she births what she has brought from the unseen. So there's the cosmos in the background, and the pearl is birthing into the physical, but she's not pushing the pearl out. And the pearl is representing the wisdom, the magic, everything she's birthing from her inner universe that comes from something higher. And she's birthing it through ease and pleasure and allowing. It's almost popping out of the flower. It's like it's allowing the pearl to birth itself almost from ease and effortlessness, rather than from forcing this pearl out when it's not ready yet and pushing it out into the world. But so often we do this if we have patterns of survival, or even if this path is also needing to pay our bills, we're like, okay, I got this idea and I have to bring it out because I have to pay rent next month. But that's usually the launches that don't really work well because it's an effort, it's forced, it's pushed, and people can feel it. Rather than when we let it emerge, like an orgasm that comes naturally from opening, from softening, from allowing to emerge, it feels so much better for everyone. For if you're with a partner, it feels much better for your partner if he sees you softening and opening and the orgasm slowly emerging. It's so much more beautiful and intense, and it feels better in the body. The orgasm is going to be much better, rather than if you have a partner who's very much in the head and in his ego, and he wants you to have an orgasm because he wants to feel validated. Your yoni and your body will feel that, and they will almost shut down. It's like, oh God, no, I need time, I need spaciousness, I need my soft blankets. And if there's this force, it never feels good to the feminine. Our bodies know what we need. And it's the same with offerings. We need to, or at least in my experience, the most effortless, most successful launches were when I was soft and I was in full trust and alignment, and I was detached from the outcome. I just wanted to offer it to the world because I wanted the whole world to know what I had just experienced. And I offered it like the pearl. And that's why I love this image. You offer your soul nectar, the thing that comes from your essence, to the world. And whoever is resonant with that will feel it beyond logic. That's why this work, it's not so much the mind, it's not so much what you think is needed. It's truly what comes from your heart and soul, what you offer. When it comes from truth and alignment, people can feel it in your energy. and they will feel magnetized to it. So this was a little excursion, but back to the pleasure energetic orgasm experiences. Mm. So a few of them were under the influence of plant medicine. I have stopped doing plant medicine for a few years now. Basically, all of the medicines told me you have reached a level of sensitivity where you don't need us anymore. You can access these states without us. And it's true. I don't need these medicines anymore. And I still honor and love all my friends who do it. I don't judge it at all because I would just judge myself. But some people feel offended when I say that because they think I'm judging them for doing it, but that's not at all the case. So if you're doing plant medicine, I honor this path. They have opened my whole world. So I really have reverence for the medicines. And obviously I wouldn't have had these experiences without them. So, okay, which one do I want to share first? Yes. There's a whole episode on this one called My 5 Hour Orgasm, but I want to channel it into just the transmission of the orgasm. So I was in Moorea after a long period of trauma healing and diving into the depths of my psyche and excavating and descending into my subconscious and into my trauma. So my body was very open. I was in a space where I was descending. If you have my Oracle deck, it's the emergence card. That's what it felt like, the stage I was in, where the mermaid dives with the diamond, the gems of truth she found in the darkness, and she's about to hit the surface. That's the level I was in, the stage of my life. So my friend invited me to this secret Vachuma ceremony. And we were laying above the turquoise waters of Moorea. It was on a deck with a little bungalow over the water. It was so dreamy. If you know Moorea, it's just heaven on earth. And it was such a dream to do the ceremony on top of my favorite waters of the planet. And we were drinking the medicine, and pretty soon I started experiencing these waves of pleasure again. And I felt them running through my whole body. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know if this is the right space to experience this, but I allowed it. And I went out of the group. I went on the deck and I laid down on the deck and I just allowed the waves of pleasure. And maybe for 10 minutes, I had energetic orgasms laying on the deck, overlooking the turquoise waters. And every time I opened my eyes and I saw something, I was so in awe with the beauty of nature, with the turquoise water, with the clouds in the sky. I just kept on amplifying the pleasure in my body, and my spine would undulate, and I would just continue to have orgasms. And simultaneously, and that's a big wound we carry as women, often from other lifetimes, often from experiences we had when we were fully in our radiance or when our innocence of sexuality was taken. I looked around to see if this is too much for someone. I was like, oh God, do I bother someone? Is this too much pleasure? Is this triggering someone? Because I had past life and teenage experience where my radiance wasn't received well and hit a lot of negative reactions from women. I was hit in the face as a teenage girl for just being me, basically. I was being slut shamed while I was still a virgin. I was always crushing against women when I was just being me and radiant. And it still happens sometimes that women mistaken my radiance with me being flirty and then telling me I shouldn't talk to their man. And I used to dim that part of myself for a very long time because I also had this deep wound of belonging and I didn't want to trigger women. I just wanted to belong to women. But now I've stabilized in my core frequency much more and I'm more grounded in who I am. And I also know part of my mission is my presence and is my radiance. And if it triggers someone, instead of trying to harmonize the field and to make her feel less triggered, I also allow people to have their experience and to not dim my radiance for it. So as I was moving through these waves of pleasure, they didn't stop. So I was having energetic orgasms on the deck, and then one of the shamans, the woman, came out, and I morphed into this goddess, and I started moving in a way I had never moved before. It felt like I'm in the temple of Egypt, and the whole group was connected through telepathy. So we could speak telepathically with each other. And it was so magical. It was just, I wish we all could speak telepathy by now because it's so effortless and so natural. And it doesn't cost so much energy to talk and to explain yourself. We can just send each other thoughts and be connected that way. And it was one of my favorite experiences. And she looked at me and she's like, "Oh, you're a goddess." And then I turned into a flower, into this spirally flower. And she's like, "Oh, you're a flower now." So we could see each other in these states. And I was like, "I know, I'm feeling so much pleasure." And she gave me a piece of mango. And I came inside with her again while the pleasure kept on moving through my body. It didn't stop for hours and hours. And she gave me a piece of mango. And I ate the piece of mango, and just when you're fully present, oh my God, a mango is so orgasmic. The sweetness, the juiciness, I dropped on my knees to to have this full experience. And what was super healing for me while I had the orgasm from eating the mango, the woman in front of me, where I didn't know her, so my nervous system was afraid this could be too much for her. She was like telepathically, and after we were talking about it, is where she literally said that she she was celebrating me in my pleasure, and she said, "I feel you, sister. Like, this is so good. I just had the same experience. Like, enjoy it." And I had another orgasm on my knees from this mango. And then it continued. Every time I touched my skin, I was like, "Oh my God, this feels so good. This feels so good." I just didn't stop. And then I saw the sound bowl in front of me, and I started playing the sound bowl. And from the sound, I had more orgasms. And suddenly the whole matrix in the room would spiral into the sound bowl. So almost like you can imagine the room around me folded into a spirally vortex and disappeared into a black hole. And for a second, I was like, "Oh, where did this reality go?" And then from the sound and from my orgasm, I birthed the reality back into place. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm the creator of this reality." And we are. It was just a visceral, embodied experience of our creation power. And I just kept going. I went outside and had more orgasms from the sunset that was slowly happening. It just, it didn't stop. The waves would continue and continue. And then at some point, we were all outside on the deck, and the friend who was celebrating my mango moment, she was peeling an orange on the deck. So the sun was setting. I was just in my pleasure, in my bliss. She was peeling the orange, and I felt this sudden urge to put my index finger into the center of the orange, where the hole is. And I asked her, I said, "Can I put my finger into this?" And everyone was sitting around us in that scene. And I put my finger into the orange, and my finger morphed into a lingam. And when I closed my eyes, I could feel I shapeshifted into a sexual experience from that finger orange moment. My sensation became having sex with a woman. So my finger morphed, shapeshifted into a lingam inside a yoni, and I was penetrating that orange. And I had sex, at least the physical sensation of it. And I also had an orgasm, a physical sensation of an orgasm. My finger was shaking, and my friend was like, "I cannot look at oranges the same way ever again." But it was so innocent. And so I was like, I understand the planet now. I understand why there's war, why I just get it. I felt like the king of the world. I understood so much in that moment. I'm so grateful. I always wanted to experience that. And then we switched to another scene where my friend was laying on the deck, and she never had anything outside a clitoral orgasm. She had sexual trauma in her childhood, so there was a lot of blockage in her body. And I just felt so innocent. It's almost like I remembered the innocence of my sexuality, and I just knew that all these experiences I had nothing to do with me, or that there's something shameful around feeling pleasure. I just remembered, and I was like, okay, let's go. What can I do with this? And I asked her like a baby, I'm like, can I put some orange peels on your eyes? And she's like, okay. So she's laying on the deck surrounded by the Moorea and turquoise waters. I put the orange piece on her eyes and I sit where her head is. So my knees are next to her head and I just kneel down and I start massaging her temples. And another orgasm comes through my body and it feels like it's moving through my hands into her head. And in that moment, she experienced her first energetic orgasm. So her body is undulating. She also had a Kundalini awakening in that ceremony. And she's experienced her first energetic orgasm. And I was celebrating it so hard. I was like, oh my God, isn't this the best feeling in the world? I want everyone to have energetic orgasms. So this was until today, I think, my most favorite experience when it comes to that. We didn't sleep much that night, and so much more happened in that ceremony. It's when the whales started to become my guides. They told me who they are, why they're here, and they stayed connected with me telepathically. So even when I'm far away from Moorea, they're always with me. And I, yeah, so this was by far my favorite. Then there was another moment. Which one do I want to share next? Mm, yeah, Burning Man. I never shared this publicly. But 2023, if you followed me, you know this was a big year for me. It's when I had my surgery, when I was told to die, when everything my identity was attached to got stripped away. My business, my family, my friends, everything was like one finger after the next was taken away from me holding on to that identity. And Burning Man was when I finally came back to life. It was after my surgery. I still had a big scar on my neck. It was only a few weeks after that. And 2023 was the mud burn. And the night of the mud, when the flood came, we had a really nice camp. I don't think I would ever be able to do the full Burning Man experience where you sleep in the tent and you have to bring your own food in the desert. I know that's what it's meant to be, but I just chose a very bougie version of Burning Man where our camp was set up and we had chefs that cooked for us. We had to do a few shifts, but we had a steam bath. We had our own showers, our own bathroom. So the first few days felt like heaven. We were just having the best time. And the day the flood came, everything shifted. My friend met a guy. So she was, from that moment, I kind of was alone at Burning Man. And the rain started. They shut down our toilets, our steam room, our bathroom. So we had to use the Dixie toilets. And the whole desert turned into sticky mud. So you couldn't wear shoes anymore because with every step you would stuck more mud on the shoes. So I found a solution. We were all training how to navigate this, and you had to put on socks. No, plastic bag, socks, plastic bag. And with a hair tie, that was the easiest solution to walk through the mud without bringing kilos of mud into the tent. So that evening, my friend is very connected to the mushrooms. And I don't know how she does it, but she has the best mushroom chocolates. She almost, yeah, went to jail on the airport. They took her out, but thankfully everything went smooth and she was able to bring the chocolates. And so it's me, her, and her guy in our tent. The rain is slowly moving through the tent walls. You can already see the water is leaking in. I had my yoni paintings on the wall of our tents, and the water was already running down the yoni, so everything was dripping. And we took a piece of mushrooms. And I, again, in the most random place in a Burning Man camp, start having orgasms in that tent. I'm on my knees and I just have these waves of energetic orgasm and they just move through my body and I'm in heaven. But my friend got a little uncomfortable with it because she had just met her guy and she felt uncomfortable with me having these orgasms. So she asked me to leave the tent, and I felt really very offended because it was so cozy and comfortable in our tent, even though the water was slowly coming in. But outside it was cold, it was muddy, there were humans everywhere, and I was in such a blissful state. But I said, okay, I need a masculine energy to channel this with. I can't circulate it fully. Like it almost felt painful to have so much pleasure because it was just moving and moving and moving, but it didn't have an outlet. I just felt like I need something. So I was like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm doing this for you. I'm going. And I went through the mud, and there was a big party in our camp. And I was like, oh God, no. Everyone was drinking, and I'm so sensitive. I don't drink alcohol. I haven't touched a drop of alcohol in many years. And I was in this orgasmic state. So I couldn't be in this party. So I went to a couch, and two people from our camp, Ezreal and Ben, were in their fur coats. I had my fur coat. I had a snow leopard fur coat. I sat down next to them, and my body would just roll and undulate. And I had crazy orgasms inside. I tried to tone it down. I was able to not make many sounds. I was just breathing through it. And the two of them were noticing, and they were like, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah." And Ezreal was like, "Are you channeling the whales in Moorea?" And I'm like, "No, I'm having a Kundalini situation. It's nothing to worry about. I actually enjoy it. I just need a man to channel this with." They were laughing. And then I looked into the crowd and into the DJ deck, and I saw a guy I had met a few days before. And I just pointed to him and pointed my finger towards me to show him he has to come here. And he sat down. He also had a big jacket because it was super cold. And I just, by him having him in my presence, start having more orgasms. And he's like, "Are you okay? Are you ticklish?" And I'm like, "No, okay, listen, I have a full Kundalini situation going on right now. I don't need you to do anything. Just lay next to me, put your hand somewhere on my body." And he put his hand on my upper arm and laid there with me. So we were laying face to face, his arm on his hand on my arm on that couch on Burning Man in a party. And for hours, it was finally able to circulate and to move. I was just having orgasm after orgasm after orgasm after orgasm after orgasm. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. And it lasted probably for about 3 hours. And then when I wanted to go back into my tent, our whole tent was flooded. My friend had left with the guy. The mattresses were soaked, so you could rinse them. And I was like, fuck, now I have to sleep in the tent of this guy I didn't even feel attracted to physically. Like there was no intention of having anything sexual with him other than this energetic situation we had. And after I was so charged up, I didn't even have the desire for anything. I was good. I was so energized by it that these experiences last for weeks. And I've been celibate for almost 4 years. So I feel like Spirit gifted me these experiences to keep going because it knows from these experiences I'm good for a few weeks. So I ended up sleeping at his place in his floating mattress in his tent. And yeah, that was the Burning Man experience. Besides these big experiences, there were also a few random moments where it happened without being planned. One time or a few times with a massage therapist that was very energetic. And I noticed my spine is very sensitive to energy. So it's not even the front body for me, it's the back body. So when someone's hovering above my spine who's sensitive to energies, that's usually where my Kundalini wakes up. So I had it with a massage therapist for a few times. I had it with a musician I was just cuddling with, and then it happened when he was touching my spine. We weren't even kissing. I had it with a guy in Hawaii many years ago where I had energetic orgasms from just kissing because I hadn't been kissing anyone in half a year or something. And just kissing him, the orgasms kept coming. So I feel like once you open this capacity, you're more available and more open for it if someone has the energy. It's very energetic. It's not really the mind, it's your body reacts to it. So it can't happen with everyone for me. I can't give it myself also, at least not on, pressing the button. And now I have this energetic orgasm. I know some people can do that. I've had women on my podcast. I interviewed Bibi. She's able to do it, but I'm not yet. Sometimes it happens, but I wish I could just press a button and have this. Because I'm also feeling I'm channeling something cosmic when this happens. It's not just purely energy, it's very cosmic energy that moves through my body. And yeah, so these were my favorite energetic orgasm experiences. There was a mountain in Moorea where every time I went barefoot on that mountain, on that hike, there was a rock that was so ancient and grounded that every time I went, I usually was just wearing a sario. And every time I would sit there and be present, I would receive energetic orgasm from that rock. So when I'm very present, when I'm very grounded, it happens in nature too. And I've had a woman called Jessie on the podcast many years ago where we talked about that. She had the same. So I know I'm not crazy. I know I'm not making this up. We as women have the capacity to open our pleasure potential far beyond just a clitoral orgasm. And even in the yoni, there's so many different orgasms we can play with. It's the G spot, it's the cervical orgasm, and they all are connected to different archetypes. They all have different pleasure sensations in the body and different activations. And that's why I'm just so passionate because there's no end to this. We can play and increase and allow ourselves to be witnessed, allow the distortions to fall away. We can allow to express what we want and what we need. And that's what I do in my intimate spaces with women in my retreats, but also online, where we play in a sacred space where I feel like I'm really good at creating a safe, sacred space where sexuality can be innocent because it is. It's just the stories that we have and the distortions and the experiences where it wasn't treated as sacred and innocent, where our nervous system contracted. But we can unlearn this in spaces where it's really honored and held. And yeah, I could go on and on with this. I had a partner once in Moorea where we were able to experiment with this a lot also in union. But I'm not feeling called to share this right now. Maybe another day. But I hope this opened a little horizon for you of what's possible when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to aliveness, when it comes to energetic lovemaking. If you want to dive deeper on this, you're in the right place. Welcome to my world. And I'm so grateful you listened to this and that you're here. And I would love to hear how it landed for you.